Shalom, beloved family. It's your girl Sophia Spiritualite, and we're here with. I said I wasn't going to be doing more of these messages, but here we are. I have a hot off the press message. It's 3:42. 4 and 2 is 6, and 3 is 9. Of course, 3:42 a.m. on my day. CoCav. It's not a dream because I'm fully awake. So I literally anyway, long story short, I have to deliver this message. This is the time. I need this is kind of like a continuation of my last message because um I realized when I went back and listened to it that there was it was something that was missing. And I'm going to continue to seek answers until I get them. That's how I do. So this is actually getting much harder to deliver. I thought at some point these things would be more comfortable, but this is even more uncomfortable than the other messages. However, it needs to be said. So here's the thing. I understand that Ugh. Okay, as we have evolved in our understanding of things, and we learned about these feast days that the Hebrews celebrate, and we appropriated a lot of those things into what we're doing. I don't think that is wrong at all. I just have one small question. If those were the feast days the Father said, what are the feast days the Mother said? Because everything about the mother is basically wiped out of the Bible, including her feast days, the days that you would commune with her. So, what are those days? What would those days look like? So, to me, in my mind, they would look like gathering with your family and friends, um, of course, eating, and probably giving out gifts. Less commercialized gifts than what we do now, but probably giving out gifts and really just communing with your family because the mother is definitely about family. And so this is why I suggested that we myself included rethink all of our holidays. So let's do a rundown of the holidays that um, we don't supposed to celebrate, the ones that I particularly been chastised for, as I sort of got onto this walk, this part of the walk. So let's start with Thanksgiving. That's the one that just passed. Well, if I was going to have a feast day for the mother, it would be preparing a meal of stuff that you don't normally have, stuff that is your best, your favorite, your whatever, with love and care, and sitting around with your family and your friends, all the generations that you can put your hands on, and laughing and joking and memorializing your family members that are here and the ones that are gone. So that's Thanksgiving. And then the next one we don't supposed to celebrate is Christmas. And remember, as I mentioned, uh, in the video by the timeline guy, he had just casually thrown out there that, oh, Christmas was the day that um, Mother Mary, conceived. Okay, so if Christmas is the day that Mother Mary conceived, then which was the sacrifice basically given by the father to the mother, essentially because, what did Yahweh do? He gave us a pathway back to the father, but technically we pretty much already had a path to the mother because she was already here. As Sister Pat mentioned in her video, she was kind of always here with us. So the Erkadeshi, of course, they were always here with us. And Tom, what is it? Silently watching us, and keeping notes and keeping tabs on what was going on with us. And so, if it was me and I had this, thing that's not supposed to be done, which is the Immaculate Conception, because that was supposed to be of our curse, and that curse was lifted so that Mary could do it. That'd probably be something I celebrated, especially if you knew that's what it did. And then if I knew that there was a angel attached to this, Saint Nicholas, who protects the children when they're born, that's attached to that date, then yeah, that's kind of like a day I would celebrate. You know, just maybe. And if you even if you look at the Jewish calendar, they celebrate Hanukkah. They do 12 days of Hanukkah. Well, isn't that kind of like our 12 days of Christmas? But they don't believe in Yahweh, so they take Jesus out of it. But we believe Yahweh existed, and he had a very important role in our ability to get back to the Father, in his sacrifice, like I always say, showing us how to both to conquer the tree of death and climb the tree of life. And so, 12 days of celebration leading up to the conception of Yahweh doesn't really seem that far off to me. And then New Year's, well, I don't know about New Year's yet, but New Year's is a calendar that I don't know about New Year's yet, but I feel like there's probably something there. I had to look a little bit deeper into see the whole issue with the calendar is like, when do you believe the new year started? So again, if the mother and the father allowed you to see another new year according to this calendar that they gave us, of all the calendars that they gave us, wouldn't you want to celebrate another year that was given to us by the mother and the father? I mean, that kind of does make sense. And I know that there's other days that we celebrate as the new year. However, if you look, well, I mean, if you consider it based on the zodiac kick zodiactical, technically, that time between the 21st and the actual New Year's, that's when we go into Capricorn, which is ruled by Saturn, which would be just like another continuation of a celebration for the mother. So, that's, or the fact that uh, I don't know. I have to ask for some more clarification on New Year's. But I feel like that's just another thing. And then what comes up after that? Well, the next thing that comes up is Valentine's Day. And Saint Valentine is the patron saint of love, essentially. And so, kind of makes sense to be celebrating the love of the mother for us and the love of the mother and the father, for us in general. So here you go. You have another holiday that they're telling you that you shouldn't celebrate. But if you think about what the purpose of that holiday is, it kind of does go with this whole theme of the mother having this love for us. And then, of course, Eastover. Well, I mean Eastover. DC talk there. Easter. I mean, wow, that's the death of her son. That's kind of like a day that we would mourn with her, over the death of the son, the only begotten son that the father uh, allowed to come here to be sacrificed to restore the earth. So, to restore the mother. And so I'm just trying to understand how, um, and then of course Mother's Day, Father's Day, all these things that we're allegedly not supposed to be celebrating. If you think about them from a practical point of view, and then what you do on these holidays, it kind of seems like maybe all these holidays aren't so bad. And so, I'm not really going to drag this message out too long, but you really have to think about the purpose of the holiday, and not what the Gentiles say the purpose is, and not what history says the purpose is, because they write and rewrite history. You have to go to the mother for yourself and say, okay, what in the world are these holidays? How are we supposed to be doing these things? Now, of course, I'm not saying that we do any of them right, but I can tell you in my family, we have the same tradition for all the holidays. Somebody prepares the meal. Usually it was my grandmother and my great aunt, as I mentioned in the last video, but somebody prepares the meal. We sit down and eat. And we fellowship with one another, play games, all that kind of stuff. And that was our actual celebration for every single holiday. So the holidays of the Father, just like you have in Leviticus, they're more, exact on how you're supposed to celebrate them. But the holidays for the Mother would be more kind of like not freestyle, but the way that she communicates is in more general terms. I mean, even if you look at the dates, 214 or like 1231, 1 2 is 3, 3, 31 is 3, and 1 is 4, so you have a 7. Okay, you know what to do with a 7. Then you have 214, 4, 6, 7. That's also a 7. Then you have Mother's Day, which is well, that day fluctuates. It's usually like what, May 12th or something like that. It's the second Sunday, so let's say it's May 12th. Then 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, I mean, Father's Day is usually June 14th, so 6 and 4 is 10, 11. That's a Niel. So I'm just trying to understand how all of these dates, they end up coming out on dates that have, significance to us now, the actual dates. Um, you know, I'm just trying to understand how all of these things can be of the Gentiles making when they have significance that could be for the mother. Because one of the things I'm starting to realize is the whole concept of the numbers and all of that. Numbers, in one of the videos I was listening to, they describe numbers as the physical um, verification of spiritual activity, basically. And so, if the physical verification of of a spiritual experience is a number, then it kind of makes sense that, or it would make sense to me that the numbers would be the numbers are essentially the communication of the mother. I mean, and they even say what, that ma'at, that's where they got the term math from, and that's feminine energy. And so while we were all and that would make sense why they didn't want our people to learn math. And the better we got at math, the more complications and confused stuff they threw in there to try and throw us off. But our people have always been good at math because we can count money. If you hand any black child some money, they're gonna know how to count it. For one, if they don't know nothing else, they know how to count 1, 2, 3, 4. They'll count their monies just like that. And that came up to me because I have like a bag of pennies, and my son, he's just like, he like tried to get open the bag, and so I handed him a penny out of the bag, and I thought, okay, for sure this mofo is getting ready to put it in his mouth or something like that. Nah, he just held the penny in his hand, and then I handed him another penny, and he put that penny in his hand too. And so he was walking around with 2 pennies, but he was like, man, this ain't enough. He was looking for some more pennies. I'm like, boy, I done gave you 2 pennies. You only have 2 hands. How many more pennies do you need? And we, just looking at it, 1, 2, 1, 2, and I'm like, man, this man is really looking at me like I did not give him enough money out of this bag of pennies. He's just looking at them 2 pennies like they sad. And then he put them on my little table after he put them on the floor and started counting them. But he never put that in his mouth. He puts everything in his mouth. He never put that in his mouth. Now that was like a clue right there for me. Like, wait a second. I think we might be misinterpreting a lot of this stuff. So being that the mother communicates in a tremendous amount of numbers, we really have to pay attention to the numbers a little bit better because, this kind of stuff is not, it's not by coincidence. And, and also this doesn't say that the father doesn't communicate in numbers. I'm just saying in general, once you start to see, like, again, go back and look at the Testament of Solomon. I believe that all of those. angels that are mentioned in the Testament are angels under the mother's command. And so, and the reason why I say that is because so many of them are um, described in numbers, which is kind of weird. Like, if you're going to be describing somebody, why the distinction in just this book that it's in numbers. Why not just say that? I mean, they do say the names, but then they're like, oh well, this name, like 644, that name didn't translate right when you tried to put it into the Greek. Then you put it into the Hebrew like I did, and then you get, like I did. You know what I mean? So I'm just starting to think that there's it's more to it than it's more to these things than what we think. Even Christmas is what, 12/25 every single year. So 1 and 2 is 3, 2 and 5 is 7, 7 and 3 is 10. So we've got a 10 right there. So we've got a 10 holiday, we've got a 7 holiday, we've got an 8 holiday, got an 11 holiday. I mean, those numbers are all very significant numbers, especially like the 8. That's an eternity symbol, you know what I mean? And that's just like the promise that the mother's going to be with us for eternity. Why wouldn't you want to be celebrating something like that? Or like a 10, of course, we recognize that as Michael. So why wouldn't we want to celebrate, the reunification of the King of Heaven with the Holy Mother? I mean, that's basically what we're having right here, you know. Because that's what Yahweh Shai symbolize, right under Yahweh Shai is Michael, the Holy Ghost. So I'm just trying to understand, like, from an esoteric perspective, from a literal perspective, from any perspective, where else are you going to find the mother's holidays except for the ones that we already celebrate? And so unlearning, the stuff that we have learned about the holidays, applying the proper perspective and the proper application of the holidays, and then, going back and doing what we're supposed to do as far as revering the mother. Because again, a lot of people are now waking up to this mother energy and all of that. So, and explain to me, somebody will have to explain to me where the denotations in the Bible are of the mother's holidays. They're there. Everything that I described is there. However, it's not really in direct terms. Why is that? Because of course they don't want you worshiping the mother. If all of this is to if all of this that we're going through is to separate us from our mother, which basically it is, and make us orphans, the father is, according to the Bible, the father left us, and whatever, and then separate us from the mother by taking out all the significators of those particular holidays. And another thing that makes me think of this is, if you read the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John 25 through 28 that kept coming up in when we pulled those cards. Remember how I talked about Mark? Because I was like, man, that was a fat boy right there, because he was always talking about the feast. He went into detail with every single feast. Well, I'm starting to think that's because he was describing how we're supposed to feast with the mother. The feast, the whole concept of the feast is you have, well, let me put it, let me add my esoteric take on it. The concept of the burnt offerings is the part that is for the father, the offering, but the communion part is the part that's with the mother. So another thing that I was thinking about is, if you think of Psalm 51:7, purge me with hyssop and I shall be clean, wash me and I shall be whiter than snow. Well, those are two different actions by two different individuals, the mother and the father, separately. So, purge me with hyssop and I shall be clean. That would be the mother, because that's a physical item mentioned in that. The hyssop is a Mother Earth medicine. And then wash me and I shall be whiter than snow. Well, that's a spiritual washing. So the mother has to purge you with the hyssop, and the father has to wash you spiritually. And so even in stuff like that, once you break it down like that, you see, and a lot of the Psalms especially are like that. They have two parts. The first part being the physical, the second part being the spiritual. Well, anything physical that's on this earth is going to be in tune with the Mother Earth energy. Mother, I call it Mother Earth medicine, and then this the stuff that's on the spiritual side, that's going to be with the Father. That's the spiritual medicine. And so when you put them together, then stuff starts to make sense. And so this is why you have to dissect, even like I just did, down to one sentence. But I only can dissect it because I've been saying it every time I do my salt rinse. And when I do my salt rinse, I'm like, wait a second, that's two parts. Well, what is it? Why would it be in two parts? If once you're purged with hyssop, shouldn't that be enough? I mean, no, because it's two different sets of individuals doing two different separate things. One is purging you with the hyssop, one is washing you whiter than snow. And so we have to look at all of the things like that. Like, what bothered me about the Day of Atonement, and this is, just an aside, is that how you going to invite the father down to have dinner with you and not the mother? So when I did my Day of Atonement, and this could be why a lot of this stuff is coming up for me, I lit a candle. I lit three candles. One for the mother, one for the father, and then one for Zedekiel, because I'm always working with Zedekiel. So I always, a lot of times I will light a candle for her. And so I did I did three candles. Plus, it made sense to do three candles. I usually go, if I do one, I won't do two. I'll just go up to three, just because of the Trinity whole cosmic law stuff. So anyway, I just these messages are getting more and more difficult, because I know that I know how our people are, especially the ones who are on this side. And I understand that we have been traumatized, re traumatized, and then traumatized again from the trauma that we received from being re traumatized. And so, like I mentioned, I don't have as much of this stuff, because as soon as I learn something, I can remove that file and replace it with the updated file. Just kind of like how the computer works. Like when you change something on the computer isn't thinking about it. You hit save, and then that old stuff that was there, it goes away. It can't be retrieved, and that's how I operate. I don't have this thing like a lot of our people do, especially with the church and all of that. I just don't have all of that. Um, I just don't have all of that baggage, you know what I mean? And so that's why I feel like I can deliver the messages, but I know that they're getting harder and harder. And one thing I would like to also add is that my assessment about some people having to deal with the blood guiltiness, as far as the meat is concerned, is correct. So the people who are vegans, who are being pushed to um engage in that, that's because, like, you have to reconnect with the mother, you know what I mean? And so the Mother Earth medicine, which are the plants and the herbs, you have to take a lot of that in to 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 purge you with hyssop. I mean, that's the literal definition of being purged with hyssop, would be to eating herbs, eating vegetables, because that's a purging from the inside of your cells. But again, as I mentioned, I don't have a lot of that, because we grew up vegetarian, so we really didn't eat a lot of meat. I don't have as I the stuff that can be purged for me can be purged differently, because of the way that I was brought up. And I understand, like I said, that nobody was brought up the way that I was. Not everybody, no, nobody basically was brought up the way that I was brought up. And so I have a totally different perspective on a lot of that stuff. And so again, I wasn't when I was talking about the meat stuff, I was just saying it for the people who don't feel they don't feel like they need to go on to this whole, vegetarian thing. You don't have to feel like that. You don't have to worry about that, because that's not called for you. The whole thing about all of this is this is a completely individual walk. It's an individual walk. We're multi-dimensional beings in a uh uh was a single dimensional having a single dimensional experience. So everybody is not going to do everything the same, but at the same time, there is as above so below. So maybe we have been maybe we're making this take longer than it has to because we're not doing enough to honor the mother the way that we always have. And because the Gentiles made it seem like the way that we were honoring the mother was actually in direct opposition to the father, based on what they added to the holidays to make them the way that they are. It just brings a lot of confusion. And again, as we get onto a single timeline, which is basically what we're coalescing around is a single timeline, then a lot of this stuff is going to be more revealed. And like I said, because I don't carry as much of the baggage as everybody else does, just in general, in regards to this kind of stuff, the holidays, and a lot of other stuff, the food and stuff like that. I don't carry as much of the baggage because, it's now my belief that they really thought that the person who was going to rule, the king or the queen, was going to come out of, where I'm from, specifically where I'm from. And that's why the people where I'm from are different than people even from neighboring counties, even from neighboring states. I mean, people from Prince George's County are nothing like people from Virginia. They're nothing like people from D.C. basically, and they're nothing like people from Baltimore. Nothing like people from Anne Arundel. I've met a lot of people from different parts of Maryland. We don't really have a lot in common. So I think that they knew where these people were going to be coming from, who are going to be able to get out there and do just what I'm doing right now. Not that I'm saying it's me personally, but I'm just saying because I don't have as much of this baggage as everyone else does, I don't really have as many of these sort of issues, you know what I mean? And so I'm able to sort of in my Virgo energy, in my Virgin Mary energy, bring these things, you know, with as clear of as pure of a heart as I can, just because I don't have as much of this stuff built up as trauma. I'm not. I just don't have as much of it as everyone else. Um, and I've always been like that, where people are like talking about this stuff, and I just never really I understood what they were saying intellectually, but I knew that wasn't my personal experience, so I couldn't really understand, a lot of times where people were coming from because I just didn't have the experience that they did, and so that was always kind of like a thing with me. Like I would listen to people talk about their experiences so I could understand them because I had no frame of reference for that type of experience. And it's just a little bit different for me. Not to go on and on about that, but it's I think it's important to mention it because a lot of the stuff that I'm saying is completely contrary to everything. And if people decide they don't want to follow me because they think I'm going off or whatever, I understand that too. But I'm just saying, I have to I have to say things the way that makes sense to me. And so this is the message I was given. So if you don't agree with what I'm saying, that's fine. But you, as the mother yourself, what are your feast days? What are your holidays? How do we celebrate you? Because right now we're trying to reconnect with your energy, but we actually don't have any information on how your feast days, your holidays, your celebrations are to be done. So, how do we do that? And, if you seek, you shall find. If you ask, it will be answered. If you knock, the door will be open. And so I'm knocking. I'm seeking, I'm asking because I do want to know what it is how it is we're supposed to actually operate on this planet. And again, my overall assessment is that we already have everything. We just have to change our intention, and we have to change our intentions, and we have to remove the blood guiltiness um, from the holidays and replace it with, you know, the righteous worship of the mother where it should be. And the sooner we can do this as a people, the better it is. But as long as people keep every time they hear a holiday, they're running and they're saying, man, these Gentiles is this and these Gentiles that, and they're not saying, well, How, is this some is and then and not it's just not even asking the question like, is this a day that the mother would want us to celebrate? Is there something that we should be doing to honor the mother on this day? And so I just, you know, I just encourage you to think about it. I mean, it's not really, again, this is very uncomfortable for me to deliver the message because I already know how I am. Like I said, like I've always said, like I will always say, I have family traditions I'm not going to give up. And I'm just not, that's I we have family traditions. I'm not giving my family traditions up. And anybody can feel however they want to feel about that. And this is not just that I'm looking for a way to incorporate my family traditions into, what is going on now, but I just don't see no other reason to have all of these holidays. I don't see no other reason why our people would have been historically been doing this. I mean, there's lots of stuff that we don't do, like Halloween. You know what I mean? Like our people don't really celebrate Halloween. That was kind of like something that we didn't do. We celebrated All Saints Day, perhaps, but definitely not Halloween. And even this whole thing with the saints. I haven't gotten into it directly, but I'm starting to have a feeling that a lot of these saints were, uh Mother Earth's mother's angels. You know what I mean? They are they and again, I mean, I don't know. Like I don't know. I'm not saying I know anything. All I can do is give you the message that was given to me, which is what are the mother's holidays? And if they're not the holidays that we already have, then what are they? And is it more likely that, because remember, the Gentiles, a lot of them, they can't, it's the ones that are here in this country, they can't trace their roots back further than 100 years. Once you try and get them into the 1800s and the 1700s, they can't really trace their stuff back that far. And most of us, born in this country or born in, the islands or whatever, we can trace our history back, you know, multi generations, multi hundreds of years. And so, all I'm saying to you is if we can trace our heritage back more than 100 years, and we know that the Gentiles, they don't create anything. They came over here, they bought, our stuff from over there, and they brought it over here and tried to repackage it to us as if it was something new, which is what they did. After they tried to take our holidays from us, why would we naturally coalesce around? Or St. Patrick's Day, that's another one, 314. 4 and 3 is 7 and 8. That's another Infinity Day celebrating St. Patrick. I mean, we have to just, I just, every time, I mean, I hate to, I said I wasn't going to make this too long, but I hate to go on and I hate to go on and on about this, but every time I think about some certain things, especially why things are set up the way that we are. And then what do you wear on St. Patrick's Day? You wear green, which is the color of regeneration. So you start to see the stuff that correlates with the mother line up. And once you see a pattern, you can't unsee it. It's just like once you see the Most High working in your life, can't nobody tell me that the Most High is not working in my life. Point blank, period. It's nothing nobody can say. But once you start to see the mother in your life, you really can't tell me nothing. And just our people really have PTSD. Like our people really have PTSD, and we have to really work on this, because this is going to be an ongoing problem if we don't start to look at our lives as being influenced by the mother and the father together and separately, just like in the Psalms. One side the mother does, the other side the father does. If we don't start to understand how that works for us, for our people, we're not going to get out of this. And so that's why I keep asking the questions, because ultimately I want us to get out of this, and Whoever can go is going to go. And another thing Sister Pat said that really hit home to me was they had to want the 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 wicked generation had to wander around the desert for 40 years and circle for 40 years. So let me tell you something. If you think I'm going to be wandering around in circles on this planet for the next 40 years, having all my needs supplied, but still wandering around this planet, for any one of y'all, you got another thing coming. I'm not willing to wander around in circles for the next 40 years until our people all die off so that we can worship the mother and the father in spirit and in truth. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. They need to just go ahead on and take me right now because I'm not doing it. Now what I am willing to do is wander around for 10 years, taking my jubilee, getting my rest and all of that, and then after 10 years that wicked generation, the people who just won't do right and can't do right are gone, and then going on with, doing worshiping the mother and the father in spirit and truth in the kingdom and the inheritance that I gave us. I'm willing to do that, but what I'm not willing to do is 40 years of that. That's not fair. That's not fair to me. And there's no way we're going to get out of doing the 40 years just like they had to do. We've already done 400 years. You mean to tell me we got to do another 40 years? Because I mean 4,000 years. Then we did 400 years. Now another 40 years just because you guys don't want to think about the what are the feast days for the mother? What are the holidays for the mother? We got all of these specific instructions on how to cut the meat, how to fillet it, how to season it, this and that. All those very specific. Where's the instructions for the mother? Where's her stuff? If it's in the Bible, it's got to be stuff that's in the Bible. So if it's in the Bible, all the stuff isn't in the Bible, but if some of it is in the Bible and it hints us in the way that the mother communicates, which would be through these kind of things that are kind of like, the Gentiles just made up their stuff and put it over top of it. That's what they do. Or they bought it from other countries and we do it here, or it's just something that you didn't really think about. All of this stuff, man, we have to rethink. I mean, that whole thing about Saint Nicholas being the protector of the children, that really I didn't know that. And that really is what started me on this, like, okay, so wait a second, that means it's got to be a there there. You know what I mean? It's no way something like that comes up and then there's no there there. So I'm not saying everybody has to do every single holiday. I'm not saying that either. All I'm saying is you need to ask the mother, what are your holidays? Which holidays do you want me to celebrate for you? How do we celebrate these holidays? Those are the questions that I'm asking. And as I get insights like this, I will bring them to you. And they're very uncomfortable because I know this goes against everything that the so-called Hebrews think, but I just know that for a fact the Gentiles don't invent anything. They take everything from us, and they always have. They take our traditions and they flip them. And I just have a strong feeling that if we are able to flip them back right at them and harness that energy using the angels that she has for us through the number code, the single digit code as the guy calls it, yeah, that's a way to take certain things back. And the only way that we're going to do it is if we actually get out there and we give it a try. And so I'm I'm really not sure about all of this, but I'm going to deliver the message anyway. Because one thing I will not have is the Holy Spirit ripped from me because I didn't deliver the message. So, um, to the spirits who are here with us, you're invited to go in peace. To my beloved listeners, viewers, you're invited to be at peace. And always remember, the Most High is your peace. Shalom.